Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Devin, Hasson, and David Wolman. It is 10:53 a.m. on a Monday morning. Gentlemen, how are we doing to kick off this week?
Doing good.
Bracing for one of the worst weeks of the year.
It's going to be a busy one. We got Wednesday coming up with National Signing Day, and then just elsewhere in our normal coverage, high school soccer's underway with district play and whatnot. Heck, you just said when you walked in, the Frisco district's almost halfway through with their district schedule.
Softball's starting.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it is hectic this week, especially with signing day.
We're getting right to that point of the year when there's going to be like 7 or 8 sports going on at once throughout the year. It is a hectic time that we are approaching. But obviously, though, still top of mind for us, central to our coverage right now is still high school basketball, as we are, down to, we're getting to the home stretch. This is the final week of the regular season on the girls' side, a week that's going to be busier, for some more so than others because of makeup games due to COVID and whatnot, but then you have things like, district titles and playoff berths that'll all be decided. I got a spam risk call just then. And then the boys obviously then have 2 weeks left, but at least for the start of things, I wanted to kind of pick up where we left off from last week as far as kind of setting the stage for some of the some notable takeaways from what transpired last week, whether it was one of those district title races that got impacted or what have you. Let's see, Devin, you're playing a little bit of catch up. You were out last week, so just nevertheless, though, what was something massive that happened on your radar over the past week?
Well, to start with, I'll go with a game that I was actually at.
Okay,
that
cool.
was in 10-6A girls, Horn, Tyler Legacy. This has been a fun race all season long. Tyler Legacy has been state ranked for most of the season. They entered that game 21-1. Overall, Horn came in. Horn was 18-4 going into that game. So that was kind of the one that I circled for a while as a game to watch, and certainly lived up to it. I mean, it was a tight game. This is a game that, spoiler, I'll just go ahead and say, Horn won, 57-47.
Breaking news.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I wanted to see how Legacy was going to handle Jasmine Shavers, who is a Mississippi State commitment, one of the top players in Texas, Horn standout guard. And they did a good job for 3 quarters. They double teamed her, triple teamed her, just threw all sorts of different looks. You can tell she's getting a little frustrated because, it's not fun for anybody just to be harassed, all the way up and down the court. Yeah. But late in the third quarter, she hit a pull-up jumper. And I thought, well, that could be the start of something. Well, sure enough, she comes out to start the fourth quarter, converts a 3-point play, hits the runner in the lane, then drains the 3. So she has 8 points in the span of 90 seconds. And this game had not been separated by more than 4 points throughout. Okay. And now all of a sudden Horn is up by 11 with 6.5 minutes left. And so and they were able to hold on from there. But you kind of expect that from her, but it was only a matter of time. But just a huge win for Horn. That actually moves them into a tie for first place with Legacy as they go into the final week. Horn's actually up half game because they played one extra. But, that Horn team it's not just a one-man show. Delana Choice, Daja Robinson, Viancia Jackson, they're all nice players that have contributed throughout the year. Vernell Atmo is a freshman. It's the first time I'd seen her play. She had a double-double in this game, and she was really impressive, especially early on. When they needed somebody else to step up around Shavers. So just a really solid one for Horn. Puts them in a position. We'll see how it shakes out. Rockwell also has just 2 district losses, but they've been quarantined, so they still have 4 games to make up here this last week. So that district race is still up for grabs, but certainly Horn, a big game to build on going forward.
Do you have a lean on, though, which way it might be trending, whether we do get co-district champions, or is there a chance for someone to separate at the 11th hour?
Well, Rockwell and Horn play tomorrow.
Okay.
So that'll be a huge game. And Rockwell's been kind of a nemesis for Horn in the recent years, but Horn did get him the first time. So it should be interesting there. As far as tiebreakers, a 3-way tie, 2-way tie, I don't know if there's the time allotted to do any kind of play. I think there's the old-fashioned coin flip in terms of seeding. But, like I say, it's crazy that we're in this final week and there's still so much left in the air because, as you alluded to earlier, the quarantine situation, there's still teams that are 2-3 games behind trying to cram all that in before the certification deadline.
Let's see. So where's the 10-5A championship still very much up for grabs? You got to see one though last week, David, that wrapped up over in, what is it, 6-5A?
6-5A.
With Lake Dallas and Grapevine, a game that you talked about a bit last week, of a very, very highly anticipated matchup. Mm-hmm. And it goes the way of the Lady Falcons. So, so talk a bit about this game and, just what it was like seeing Lake Dallas now. Whereas last year they split the district title with Braswell, they get it outright this season.
Yeah. Lake Dallas came in, won that game 59-46, and this is a game that it was just the Mackenzie Buss show. Mm-hmm. I mean, their stud point guard junior, and it was good for her to get this kind of performance, especially knowing what she went through last year. Mm-hmm. Last year, she missed all of last season because, ACL injury, she had a meniscus tear, and MCL as well, too. So just 3 tough injuries right there. And she didn't even get to play one game last year. She got injured in a fall league game against Denton Geyer. Mm-hmm. So, in a game that, coming in against Grapevine, a team that was only trailing Lake Dallas by 1 game, entering the district standings, because coming to right now, both of those teams in district play, they're combined 22-2. Mm-hmm. So coming to this game, Lake Dallas, they had beaten Grapevine earlier this year, 69-66 in overtime, and actually in that game, Mackenzie Buss only made 1 field goal, and she shot 8% from the field.
Wow, that's okay.
Yeah. So obviously that wasn't going to happen again. Mm-hmm. So she comes out on Friday and puts up 30 points.
Naturally,
yeah. And she did it she put together this amazing 11-0 run by herself to start the second quarter. Mm-hmm. So she was driving the baseline, using her speed to run past the defenders. She was hitting running jump shots with one hand right there. And this is a game that Grapevine actually led 16-12 after the first quarter. Mm-hmm. And so then she goes off for 11 straight points, and then Lake Dallas pretty much leads the rest of the way. And then just to cap it off, after that, down towards the fourth quarter, she was dribbling the ball down the court, and then she makes a move behind her back right there. The Grapevine defender slips 4 feet on the court.
I saw that video. It might have been Reese with the Denton Record Chronicle that posted it. You'd have thought that there was a tornado that blew through the arena with the direction that this poor defender went, just careening to the floor. And just what a highlight for Mackenzie Buss.
Yeah, that was game right there. Yeah. So 30 points. Georgia Elliott, who had 29 the first time they played Grapevine, she put up 15 points in this game as well too. Mm-hmm. She had a really good first quarter to keep Lake Dallas afloat. So Lake Dallas comes in, they win the title. It's their 14th straight win, so they're just on an absolute roll right now, and they've got 2 games left. So obviously it's going to be interesting to kind of see how they play their minutes this week. But that's a huge accomplishment for this program.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see now how it all translates to the postseason with what they accomplished last year. And now obviously every year's different because the draw is going to be different. They're not going to play the same teams they played last year and whatnot. So,
of course.
But obviously that is a team though at the very least though the expectation is to get back to where you were last year and getting back to the regional tournament. Let's see. On my end, I just kind of wanted just to offer up a quick update as far as the district title races are concerned for a few of the districts in my coverage sphere. My game last week on Tuesday, I was very, very anxious to see how this would pan out. A meeting between 2 state-ranked teams that are vying for the district championship in 5-6A with Allen and Denton Geyer. Allen won the first meetings. It was just a 2-point game back early in January when they first played. Both teams are ranked in the state's top 15. Allen's only had 3 losses all season, so naturally excited to see how the rematch plays out. This was not a wire-to-wire barn burner like the first meeting, man. Geyer put it on Allen, and they put it on Allen good. This was a 65-42 ball game, buoyed by a very, very strong second half for Geyer. They outscored Allen 37-20 over the final 2 quarters after having, just a 6-point lead then at the break. The story of this one was the Geyer defense. And they deployed a press from the opening tip that just never let Allen find its footing. I mean, it was just getting the ball past half court was a chore for them. In fact, in the second quarter, never seen this before at the high school level, back-to-back 10-second violations. They couldn't even get the ball past half court a couple times in a row against this Geyer team. And at least from a personnel standpoint, though, worth noting that Allen did have, it was a little bit of a hand tied behind the back sort of situation as they were missing their starting point guard, their chief ball handler, Zoe Jackson. She was out with a finger injury. She wasn't cleared, by the doctor to play. She did come back for their Friday game against McKinney, but they did not have her against Geyer. And then when you're playing against a team, though, that is pressing to the extent that they are, that's kind of who you need, though, to be the anchor to try to break that press is your top ball handler, your top playmaker. Just the result was, it started off they committed a ton of turnovers. I mean, they committed turnovers all game long, but at least early on, they were able to stem the tide with their transition defense, being able to get back and limit the damage off those turnovers. Mackenzie Worm, Laura Bello were really, really strong down low as far as deterring a lot of stuff that Guy was trying to get at the rim. But then once you got to the second half, though, they had some breakdowns in that respect, and Guy got a lot of easy baskets in transition and just kind of blew this one open. They got their perimeter shooting game going, and then kind of later on in the second half, they were able to start to kind of spread out Allen, and then kind of use their speed to create some mismatches and attack the basket that way. So this one, it got out of hand, it's nevertheless, though, at the end of the day, it counts just the same as the 2-point win for Allen did back in January. So they're two teams now that are I guess Geyer's played one more game yet because they haven't had their second half bye in district, so they're technically a half game up on Allen. But both teams only have one district loss as they look to try to close out a potential split for the district title. The path is easier for Geyer, no doubt. They just have one game this week, and I believe it's against Little Elm on Tuesday. Game they should take care of business in. Allen, meanwhile, has a game left still against. They play Prosper this week, a Prosper team that's fighting for its playoff lives, trying to cling to that last playoff spot. And then Friday's a big one against Denton Braswell, who's in third place in that district, and played Allen right down to the wire in their first meeting. I want to say that was like a 41-37 type ball game. It was a really close game. So it's no foregone conclusion that we get a split for the district title, but that's kind of where things are at there. I was curious, though, from what it might mean, though, from a seeding standpoint in the postseason. And this could be an interesting wrinkle to see how this all gets sorted out. So you can already kind of see, at least as far as the brackets go, where everyone's going to be slotted as far as what seeds are going to go where. And in a roundabout way, it actually might be more of a benefit to whoever gets the number 2 seed out of this district because of the way that things are shaking out over in the Grand Prairie Arlington ISD district. So that district has the 2 highest ranked teams in the region, South Grand Prairie and Arlington Martin. SGP won the district. They've already locked up the top seed. Arlington Martin, who I believe is ranked inside the state's top 10 or number 11 or something, or they're right in that range, they're going to be the 2 seed. And if form holds through those first 2 rounds, I believe Arlington Martin would be the opponent for the top seed out of 5-6A in the area round. So in a roundabout way, you actually might stand a better chance of going further in the playoffs if you get that second seed and don't end up facing one of the 10, 11 best teams in the state in the second round. So I'm curious to see how that sorts itself out in the days to come. Over in 6-6A, it is all wrapped up. Plano East, they're still undefeated in district, 12-0. They put the finishing touches on their first district championship since 2008 last Friday, and it had to be a pretty rewarding feeling considering how it materialized, because they did so by beating the team that had lorded over Plano ISD girls basketball for a while now with Plano, and they were able to beat Plano on their home floor 59-48. It was a game that was close for a bit of the second half, and then it sounds like East defense just really took over down the stretch and just really put the clamps on Plano, and East was able to win its 12th straight game. They haven't lost a game since December 5th, and that came against arguably the best team in the state right now in DeSoto, and they've kind of started to restore the mojo of a team that's playing like a district champion. There was that stretch, David, where they were having a lot of close wins. They had to scrape by to beat Coppell. They had to scrape by to beat Plano. I saw them in person. They needed a game winner to take down Louisville. But now, since that game against Louisville, they've gotten things a bit more back on track with 3 consecutive double-digit wins. Their point guard, Kayla Cooper's back. She wasn't in that Louisville game. She had 15 points against Plano. So, yeah, mean, kind of like Dallas, they got a nice little streak going. They're in a good way heading into the postseason, and with what this team accomplished last year, getting 2 rounds deep, coming a hairline away from making it 3 rounds in an overtime loss to Harker Heights. Anxious to see what it means now heading into the postseason. Kind of like, guys, in a different respect from Lake Dallas, Plano East has changed regions altogether. So who knows what sort of minefield awaits in those first few rounds in Region 2 if they are able to, at least in Region 1 if they are able to make it that far. They have not been 3 rounds deep in the playoffs since 2001. So looking over the brackets, it does look like I think they would end up drawing the winner of the I guess potentially that matchup I just talked about, where the 5-6A champion against Arlington Martin. I believe the winner of that game would get Plano East in the 3rd round. So who knows? A lot of stuff has to fall in place for that to materialize. But, yeah, East has a chance to keep this thing rolling into the postseason, and they now get to do so with the confidence that comes with being a district champion. Man, they were fired up after winning that.
I saw some of the clips on
some videos on social media. That meant a lot to those girls, being able to do so. And I'm sure, yes, being able to beat your biggest rival on their home floor with the kind of lumps that they had taken over the years to East, that had to be a pretty special feeling for Plano East. So, yes, they've wrapped up the district title over in District 6A. Then you have over in 5A, 10-5A. I'm going to get to them a little bit later because there's a huge game this week that's going to decide a lot of stuff there with McKinney North and Wylie East. Over in 11-5A, we could be destined for a split between Newman Smith and Woodrow Wilson. Both teams have 1 district loss apiece. I say that because they have not played the same number of district games because of COVID stuff. I think Wilson might have, if the Max Prep schedule that I saw holds true, they've got like 3 games this week, all of like back to back to back. It could be one of those weeks for them. But you could kind of see some signs early on in district play that it was going to come down to those two. So you look at the scores and there's just 2 teams that are just blowing out everyone each night out. So then you saw them. They finally played on December 30th. That game went the way of Woodrow Wilson, and pretty emphatically too. It was a 52-34 ball game. They rematched last Friday though, and Newman Smith returned the favor in pretty similar fashion. This one was a 55-39 victory for the Lady Trojans. A big start for Newman Smith. They got a 20-point first quarter, built a 30-21 halftime lead, and just kind of held serve from that point forward. Got a huge game down low from their post. Jada Ship, just an absolute force in the paint for Newman Smith. Anaya Kadane had 15 points, and it's a team that's now won 8 of their last 9 games. Things are starting to kind of fall into place for them. It's a team that went 2 rounds deep last year, lost to I believe it was Frisco Centennial that got them in the area around. But yeah, we'll see how this week shakes out. But we could be looking at a split for the district title between Newman Smith and Woodrow Wilson over in 11-5A. Let's see. Did you guys have anything else to add as far as some stuff from last week? Or
yeah, I wanted to touch on the 9-5A girls.
Okay. What you got?
That as they come down the stretch. First, I want to. 2 teams I wanted to talk about. First of all, Lone Star, who clinched at least a share of the district championship. Okay. This is a Lone Star team that was picked to finish 3rd in the preseason poll by TABC. But it was a big week for them because they played Monday. They've been catching up quarantine issues, so they had 3 games last week. Okay. But they beat Memorial on Monday. Memorial, who's in 2nd place in that district. And then on Friday, they beat Centennial, who's in 4th place in that district. Okay. So, for those that thought, okay, this is Lone Star, they really have to prove it. Well, they went out there and beat 2 of the top teams in that district. They're really solid across the board, with Kyla Deck and Kate Valley and Hannah Carr and Jordan Devon. And people kind of forget this is a team that's had some success in recent years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's everybody talks about Liberty this, because of last year's run and the year before that, for that matter. But, Lone Star won 3 straight district titles from 2017 to 2019, advanced 3 rounds deep in the playoffs each of those years. They were in the, a regional semifinals last year. So certainly, I think, not to be overlooked, and I don't know if anybody's going to overlook the 9-5A championship, coming out of that district. Mm-hmm. But I think Lone Star kind of proved that they deserve that spot atop the district. Speaking of Liberty, though, also wanted to mention them. They were 5-3 at one point in district. But you look at it, those losses were by 2 to Centennial, by 2 to the aforementioned Lone Star, and by 3 to Memorial. So they were all close, but nonetheless, they're 5-3. You think, okay, are they falling off? All it does is won 8 straight. And it's their defense.
It always is.
During their 8-game winning streak, they're allowing 19 points per game. And, I mean, it's just, you look back to last season in the playoffs, in that playoff run, they allowed 36.1 points per game. And they found a way to win close games. That was their MO. And that's, you look at that run, they beat Centennial by 1, Midlothian in 3 overtimes, College Station in overtime. And that's kind of what they're starting to do again. They're relying on that defense, just shutting other teams down. And then when you have a player like Jazzy Owens-Barnett that can take over late and make those clutch plays, and I mean, that's not to say she's the only one that can make clutch plays, because they've obviously all been able to proven they've been able to do it. But, that's Liberty again. They have an interesting game with Lone Star this week. But just the body of work that they put together the last 2 or 3, for those that might be willing to write them off early on, Liberty, even if they come in as the 3rd seed out of that district, which looks like it could be a possibility, they're still going to be tough in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll get to them later, but whoever gets runner-up out of 10-5A, between it's looking like it'll either be McKinney North or Wylie East. I mean, they're both state ranked.
Yeah.
But just what an absolute chore that would be to have to face the defending state champion in the first round.
Well, and 9-5A has, Lone Star Memorial and Liberty are all state ranked. Yeah. So, that first round matchups is going to be, I could have a couple of really good ones with 9-5A and 10-5A.
Jeez. David, do you have anything to add before we move on to looking ahead to this week?
Are we just talking about strictly girls? Or
it's up to you, man. You can go wherever you want. You can talk about soccer if you want. You can talk about
swimming. Swimming, wrestling's
going wild, man. The floor is yours, David Wolman.
Well, obviously, just 2 quick notes right here. Obviously, the Colony boys, they had to make up some games last week because of COVID. They had to play 4 games in 4 days.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So this from Wednesday through Saturday, they were playing a game each day. So, and entering that stretch, they held a 2-game lead over there for the final playoff spot, and now they're tied with Sherman for the last playoff spot coming out at 10-5A. So obviously, they got two very important games coming up right here over the next week or so, including Thursday at home. And both of these games are going to be at home. They got Princeton on Thursday, and then the following Tuesday got Rock Hill. And the Colony and Rock Hill played each other on Saturday, and it was a tight ball game all the way. And Rock Hill squeaked out a 57-56 win.
Wow.
So obviously, it's probably going to be one of the last games of the regular season right there, and it's the game that the Colony really needs right there. So obviously it's a team that finished as a district runner-up last year, and so I mean it'd be huge. And also with the Colony, they've had, like I mentioned, they had some COVID cases. So I went to Wylie East on Thursday, and their girls basketball coaching staff had to step in because the boys coaching staff was in quarantine because of contact tracing. So they stepped in and they actually got 83-62 win right there. So I don't know how much longer the boys coaching staff is going to be in quarantine for, but hopefully they can come back this week and do what they do and lead them to 2 more wins. And then over in 6-6A, you got the battle for the district title right there between Coppell and Marcus. And obviously Coppell, they had a really tough game on Friday against Louisville, a team that looked like that Coppell won the first time around, thanks to a big fourth quarter by Nazir Brown, their transfer from LD Bell during the offseason. This time around on Friday, Coppell jumped out to a huge lead. It looks like they were going to, blow out Louisville. They led 20-9 after the first quarter. Okay. And then Louisville, they're just a tough team, grinded out. And just like in the first matchup, they came back and forced overtime. And they did that by using a 19-11 run during the fourth quarter to tie it up. And then obviously, Coppell, they're just they've played so many close games this year, even though they've won a lot of games in a row. They're just mentally tough. They just know what it takes to pull it out to win, because obviously they're back-to-back district champions who are looking for a 3rd straight district championship, and they come out and outscore Louisville 12-7 in overtime to pull out a 70-65 win. So, I mean, they're still one game up on Marcus, and Marcus got a buzzer beater by Nick Donnelly on Friday to keep them only one game behind Coppell for the district lead right there. So it's going to be interesting. You know, they still got 2 weeks left in the regular season. So, I mean, I think just based on what I saw from Max Preps, that these two teams can't finish worse than, like, you know, second in the district right there.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting either way.
It's that Coppell-Louisville matchup has been sneaky fun for the last couple years. I believe the two last year were both decided right down at the wire. Louisville ends up winning both, and then this year, I guess 3 of the past 4 meetings between these two teams have now gone down to the wire. Pretty fun stuff there between the Cowboys and Farmers. And just once again reiterating, like we talked about last week, there's no nights off in this district.
Nope.
So let's see. So then let's look ahead to some of the stuff that we have cooking for this week. What are some of the big storylines on our docket for this coming week? I had alluded to earlier District 10 5A, and you know how that district title is still to be determined. We'll get an answer on Tuesday. It'll either be decided outright or it will likely be split between McKinney North and Wylie East. This is a game that takes place at North. It's probably where I'll be on Tuesday, and I'm just fascinated to see how this game shakes out given the circumstances that preface the first meeting. So they initially played on January 8th. It was a game that Wylie East won this one 53-50, but leading up to the game, though, there was a massive shift in personnel over at McKinney North because this was their first game playing without their leading scorer, Amaria Fields, who is no longer with the program. And this was a situation that materialized sometime between their game that prior Tuesday against the Colony and then this game Friday against Wylie East. So all of a sudden now you don't have, this is Amaria Fields. She's committed to Boston College. She's a 2-time all-area selection for us. 25 points a game. One of the top players in the area. So to not have that now all of a sudden in your arsenal and, having to now get ready for your biggest game of the season so far on the fly. And this North team has been interesting to monitor all season because they're giving major minutes to 3 freshmen, Kaylin Hamilton, Ciara Harris, and Cheyenne Wooten. And it's, when you're starting as a freshman, you don't get to have a traditional freshman year in high school sports. You basically have to play like a junior or senior, despite being 2-3 years younger. But those 3 have had to take on some pretty serious responsibilities as far as kind of stabilizing this thing for North, because this is now 25, 27 points that you have to find a way to make up in your lineup, and they've actually done a real. Again, they only lost to Wylie East by 3 points. All this prefacing that game, and maybe there was some shock factor in it being Wylie East not necessarily knowing how to scout a team like that didn't have Amaria Fields and whatnot, but that's why I'm kind of anxious to see then how this rematch goes, whether that was, how much of that first meeting actually holds true. Is it a case now where this North team, now that they've had a bit more time to kind of, figure out an identity with this new rotation, this new lineup, they've won 6 straight since losing to Wylie, so it hasn't at all dampened their bottom line as far as staying in the hunt for the district title. And they've got a chance on Tuesday to now draw even with Wylie East and create a potential split for the district championship, which, again, if you had laid this scenario out there back in January that, you're going to be basically, turning over the reins essentially to 3 freshmen and having to now try to conquer what's been a pretty competitive district with what Princeton's done, with the surge that Rock Hill's shown in the second half. And again, Wylie East, who's, one of the better teams in the state. It's been an impressive job that North has done kind of steadying the ship despite that, that circumstance. So that's obviously a very, very high profile game on Tuesday. And then lastly, again, we talked about it last week, David, with the logjam that's materializing in 6-6A boys right beneath Coppell and Marcus, and it just got only murkier over the past week because now you have a 3-way tie for 3rd place between Plano East, and Louisville. All 3 of them are at 5-5. Hebron, following that buzzer-beating loss to Marcus, they're 1 game back, and I guess now 6th place at 4-6. Plano's come on really, really strong in the second half of district play. They've got 3 straight wins all over teams that beat them in the first half. Louisville, Hebron, and Plano East, all 3 are teams that they had to beat if they were going to hope to contend for a playoff spot, just so you don't surrender the head-to-head tiebreaker to any of those teams, and they followed through on that. Now they're They've got a big week as far as not letting that momentum go to waste because they have Plano West and Flower Mound, the bottom two teams in the district. They have them on their schedule this week, and then next week is when they play Marcus and Coppell to round things out. So who knows there again. If they can get through this week without getting upset, then it puts them in a really good spot for those last couple of weeks just because of what they've been able to do so far up to this point. And then elsewhere in the schedule, East it's kind of reversed for Plano East. They have Coppell and Marcus this week, and then Hebron and Louisville next week, so we really won't know where they stand in this thing until we get to next week, unless, hey, if they can score an upset along the way, then that would obviously help their chances a ton. The big game, though, is Friday, though, with Louisville at Hebron. The Hawks won round one of that matchup, 52-42. Does feel like Louisville is starting to play a little bit better, though. That was right in that stretch where Louisville really kind of, looked like the wheels were starting to fall off a little bit, that first real piece of adversity that they had faced all season long, but they've since, kind of righted the ship a bit more. Again, so yeah, we'll see, but it's just a long way to go there, and just nowhere close to. I mean, there's no configuration of four teams that make the playoffs that would surprise me out of that district right now. It's a chore to follow that one. So so that's at least what is on my docket for this week. Devin, what is your week looking like?
Well, on the girls' side, looking at 9-6A girls, a couple big games on Tuesday. Rowlett and Garland go into that game tied for fourth place with 6-6 records. Garland actually won the first meeting, which gives them a slight edge there. Rowlett's made 4 straight playoff appearances. They've been a solid team, not a spectacular team, but a solid team. But it's a must-win because Rowlett closes the season on Friday against Lakeview, who's undefeated, already clinched the district championship, while Garland has South Garland, who hasn't won a district game. Rowlett, when I've seen them, they look really great at some points, and then they really, they fall off. It's just the consistency, I think, is they're going to need to rely on and need to have on Tuesday to win that game. Because again, the likelihood, even if they win that game, they'll have split the season series. It's still likely they'll have to play a third game later on to decide that playoff berth, but got to get there first, and that's winning on Tuesday. The other one is Sachse and Wylie. Wylie leads Sachse by 1 game for second place. Lakeview's already clinched, like I said. That's a very under-the-radar good Lakeview team over there. Yeah. They may surprise some people when the playoffs roll around. But Sachse, speaking of teams that might surprise, I mean, this has been one of the top programs in the area for the last decade. And Last season, they graduated a lot. Graduated the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year, had a player. Elizabeth Woods, one of their top players, decided not to play this season. She's playing volleyball. So you looked at what they had coming back. Chrislyn Rose, last year's Newcomer of the Year. She's a sophomore, but you're putting a lot on her shoulders. But this may be a team right now that has as much upside as anybody, because you were talking about the freshmen before. They start 3 freshmen over at Sachse.
Okay.
London Oliphant, Nina George, and Micah Cooper. I saw them last Friday. I mean, they're just 3 very versatile players. They can all handle the ball. They got a little bit of size to them. Mm-hmm. And they putting them around Chrislyn Rose, who's one of those dynamic scorers in the area. And, you knew it was going to take some time. And, they had won 69 straight district games coming into this season, and that streak ended in the opener back in December against Lakeview. But you kind of thought, okay, with this team, with that youth, give them some time. And they had a quarantine issue, so that kind of delayed them, set them back a little bit. But they've come on strong here of late. They barely lost to Wylie in that first meeting. But I think as the rematch comes up tomorrow night, it's a chance to see how much they've developed since that last round of games. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see them win that game, force a tie for second. How they decide the seeding, we'll have to see after the season. But, again, this is a Sachse team that could be scary going forward just because of the upside, I think, that then the potential to make things happen.
David, how about you, man?
I'm going to be covering soccer tomorrow.
Okay.
It's actually, I know we're talking a lot about basketball here on the podcast, primarily. So it's actually a really big game between Marcus and Coppell on the boys' side tomorrow. Marcus finished last season 19-1-2, and their only loss was to Coppell. Mm-hmm. Which was a 2-1 final. So, and this one's going to be at Buddy Eccles Field tomorrow, and so it's going to be interesting to kind of see how Marcus kind of handles this game, and Coppell as well too. So that's on my docket for tomorrow. And then Thursday, go cover Princeton at the Colony for boys basketball. Huge game for the Colony, like I was mentioning earlier in this podcast. They're tied for Sherman for fourth place in the district. It's definitely a must-win game. You know, Sherman's come on really strong lately. They've won 3 straight games, including one over the Colony last week, virtue of a 2-point victory right there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's, you know, the Colony's it seems like they got to pretty much win out the rest of the way. And then Friday, I'm kind of seeing how the rest of these Tuesday games kind of turn out as far as basketball, because obviously if you look at 5-6A on the girls' side, Prosper is holding on to a 2-game lead over there on the girls' side, and then they play Allen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could be interesting to see how that plays going into Friday. So, like in Prosper, like they missed the playoffs last year, and then they went they went a long way in the playoffs the year before that, and the only nemesis was against Allen.
Yep.
So, that'll be a good game because if Prosper can spring the upset, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, the way it looks right now over in District 5-6A, so Prosper's in 4th place. They're 4-6, and then 1 game back. McKinney and Little Elm are both tied at 3-7.
Yeah.
You know, Prosper split with Little Elm. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. They swept McKinney, so they at least have the head-to-head there in their advantage. So McKinney has to finish ahead of Prosper in the standings. So that's their only hope, is that Prosper loses out and that McKinney wins out with these last 2 games. Prosper has games this week against Allen Tuesday and then Friday against McKinney Boyd, who is in last place and is yet to win a district game. Little Elm, meanwhile, has Denton Geyer, and then they, fittingly enough, play McKinney on Friday. So, you know, there is a scenario there where I guess if Little Elm can spring that upset over Geyer, that, you know, they could make things interesting there. But at the very least, though, I mean, both those teams McKinney and Little Elm are going to need McKinney Boyd, you know, most likely to, you know, pull off one heck of an upset if they're going to upset the apple cart with this one. So it's looking like it's going to be Prosper's in a very advantageous spot with the way that things are looking right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of a look at kind of what is on our dockets for the week, and yeah, it's should be a fun one, guys. A busy week that we have on the job this week. So, yep, that'll do it for this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. We'll be back right around the same time next week, most likely to preview the girls basketball playoffs. We'll know the matchups and we'll know all that good stuff. So yeah, take a look at that and yeah, see where that takes us. Until then, folks, you take care, and we will talk to y'all later.